Today, I'm gonna share with you the top 5 mistakes that I see beginners always making, and wait till the end because I'm gonna share the most important one last. That's gonna be super transformative for you, whether you're a beginner or even an advanced player. The first thing that you always need to be thinking about is your weight balance. So how you're centering your weight, especially when you're up here at the kitchen line, but this really applies to everywhere in the court. In pickleball, we always want to play in front of us. And if you manage to get up to the kitchen line, which you should know that's the best place in the court to be, it's very important that we're leaning forward and having the weight out on the balls of our feet. What a lot of beginners do is they sit back on their heels and then have their paddle in close to their body. What happens here when I'm on my heels is even though it might feel stable, when the ball comes at me, I'm gonna end up getting pushed back, and you can see I lean back here and my toes come up. We see that all the time. When I do that, the paddle face opens and the ball goes up. And one of the biggest struggles that beginners have, and one thing that they complain about all the time, is they can't beat bangers. People that just hit the ball hard over and over and over again, and the reason for that is because if the ball comes hard and you're leaning back, you're gonna pop it up. So here's what not to do. When I have a hard ball coming at me, leaning back and then sending the ball up. It's not gonna go very far, it's gonna pop right up, and then an aggressive player is gonna come straight behind that and crush it. So instead what I wanna do is be in my ready position. With my weight on the balls of my feet, I should have my heels slightly off the ground so you could slip a piece of paper under them. That's about how much space you want. And I'm gonna lean forward into the ball. When I lean forward into the ball with my weight on my toes, I'm gonna be able to angle the paddle face down, and that's gonna be a much more aggressive counter to any hard shot. So see there, I had my weight up on my toes even when I finished, and I just went out to get it. I took a little bit of a bigger swing there. Even if I don't take as big of a swing, when I have my weight going forward, I'm gonna be able to keep it down nice and low. See, I didn't really swing at that ball at all, but it went down off the paddle. As opposed to when I have my weight going back, the ball goes up off the paddle naturally. So that's gonna send it up, the paddle face opens, weight forward, keep it down, and it's gonna be a much more aggressive shot. And that same concept applies when I'm in the back court too, so I'm back here by the baseline. If I have my weight falling backwards as I hit, the ball's naturally gonna go up. But if I have my weight going forward, even if I'm taking that bigger swing, I'm gonna be able to contact it out in front where my paddle face is nice and flat, and I can push it straight ahead and keep the ball nice and low. So when you're hitting those returns of serves, you're hitting those third shots, drives, or drops, if you have your weight going forward and you contact the ball out in front, you're gonna be able to keep the ball down nice and low. So as I hit, if I have my weight going back a little bit, the ball's gonna go up. See, I let that ball get very close to me, it jammed me a little bit, and I fell back sending the ball up. Instead, what I wanna do is focus on getting the ball out in front so I can push forward with that flat paddle face, and that's gonna help keep it nice and low. That ball I hit all the way out in front of my body, and it stayed low. It only crossed the net about this high. That's because I got it out in front. So you always want to go get the ball, have that weight going forward. Whenever your weight's going backwards, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble and probably going to pop it up. My second tip, which follows up very nicely after that first tip, is to serve and then step back. So after you hit your serve in pickleball, your weight's probably going to be going forward. So then I end up here inside the court. So when I do this, if my opponent hits a deep return of serve and it bounces around my feet, more likely than not, I'm gonna hit that ball falling backwards because I got a little bit jammed. And then my weight's not going forwards, of course, the ball's gonna pop up a little bit just like we talked about. And I'm just not gonna have enough time to make proper decisions. In pickleball, even giving yourself an extra couple of seconds makes a huge difference in your decision-making process and your ability to hit a much better shot. So instead what I'm gonna do is as I swing and I pivot, I'm gonna take that foot that comes forward into the court, I'm just gonna push back off it and take a step back behind the baseline. If you're a tennis player or someone that's played a racket sport before, you can even do a little more of an advanced tip and split step as you push yourself back. That's gonna help get you on your toes for your third shot. But if you're more of a beginner, you don't have to worry about that yet unless you really want to. So again, I'm gonna pivot as I serve, step back, and then now I have all that extra space behind the baseline. So now I'm maybe 4 feet behind the baseline, whereas before I was like 2 feet inside of it. So we'll see the difference that makes when I go to hit my third shot. My opponent there hit a great return. It was super deep, but I had plenty of space so that I could hit it out in front and still keep the ball nice and low. So that's the difference that serving and stepping back is gonna give you. My third tip is gonna be a technique tip that's gonna help you on every shot. I'm gonna teach you what you should be doing with your wrist. This is something that causes a lot of confusion, especially among players that are in that intermediate stage and below. It's very natural as you swing, especially on your third shots when you're back here at the baseline, to flick your wrist through. So if I hit a drive, I swing and I flick, or if I hit a drop, I flick right here. Usually that's overcompensating for poor positioning. So if the ball's a little bit far away from me, I can't really follow through, so I have to flick in order to give it that pop to get it over the net. So what we want to do is focus on positioning ourselves right behind the ball so that way we can take a proper swing. But here's what the proper swing looks like. As I come through, I'm going to swing with my shoulder. So my wrist is going to be mostly set back, so I'm going to have a slight bend in my wrist going backwards, right, where if I hold my paddle straight out and I want to point it to the back wall, that's going to be the proper position that I'm going to take, especially on a drive, return of serve, or serve. And as I swing, my shoulder comes through, I make contact out in front, and I don't break my wrist until the very end of the swing. I'm going to make contact here, and notice my wrist is going to stay in that same position as I brush through. I'm still not breaking it. I only break it when I get to the end of my swing, and then it straightens out. That's going to keep my swing very stable. If I flick, I'm going to lose a lot of control. Flicking right through here at your point of contact is going to accelerate the paddle very quickly. You're going to lose control of the ball, it's going to go flying. So that's it on a third shot drive. The third shot drop's going to be very similar. I'm usually going to make contacts further out in front for a third shot drop. I'm still going to have my wrist set back in the same position, but here I'm just going to follow through up, and I'm never going to break that wrist. I'm going to keep it back the entire time. If you can keep your wrist stable on your third shots, that's going to help you keep the ball in the court, keep it where you want it to go so much more of the time. So to start, I'm going to break my wrist. That's how it looks when I break it. I'm going to hit, and I'm going to flick right through it. So I want to keep that wrist nice and stable all the way through the shot. So I set, swing through, and then don't break until the very, very end. So I'm going to keep that nice wrist position all the way through the stroke. As you get more advanced, you might see players that appear to be using their wrist a little bit more, where they set their paddle here to start, and then as they swing, they lag the wrist back and then snap through. That's a good technique if you're an advanced player, but they're still using the same fundamentals. So if you ever hear someone talking about wrist lag, that is true, that is something that you might want to do as you get better. But the key is that that snap starts before and then it finishes after. So no one's ever really snapping through the contact. The wrist snaps after contact. And usually it's going to snap about halfway through the follow through around here. That's where it's going to close. We're never going to have the wrist close over the ball through the point of contact. For a drop, same thing. See there, I flicked, accelerated, and even though I didn't feel like I was swinging that hard, the ball went really far. So instead what I want to do, especially to keep that ball soft in the kitchen, is set, and I'm just going to swing up the back of it with my shoulder. That drop was one of the best drops I've ever hit, actually. It landed right in the kitchen. So as you can see, I didn't do anything funny with my wrist. I kept it set all the way through the stroke. And this tip is super important at the kitchen as well. So when you're hitting your dinks, we have to make sure that we keep the wrist stable. So on our drives, the wrist breaks towards the very end. On drops, our wrist never breaks. On dinks, it never breaks either. So if I'm hitting a backhand dink, I'm gonna make sure that I set and I swing through just with my shoulder. If I'm hitting a forehand dink, I'm gonna set and make sure I swing through just with my shoulder. Now, just because we're keeping it stable doesn't mean that we're not setting it. So I am still on my backhand gonna bend my wrist back, and that's gonna be the position that I set it in. I don't move from there, I just swing with my shoulder. Or on the forehand, depending on if I wanna hit some topspin or if I wanna just come under the ball, I'm still gonna set it in one of these two positions. So I'm gonna set my wrist, I'm just not gonna be moving it as I swing. That's the key distinction here. So we are technically using the wrist, we're just not moving it as a part of the swing. So here my wrist is set, I'm moving my shoulder forward, and I'm really not moving my wrist at all. So my shoulder comes through the ball, and there's zero wrist movement, and that's how I'm able to keep the ball nice and low in the kitchen. When I flick, that's when I lose control. My next tip is gonna help you conquer one of the hardest parts of pickleball, and that's learning how to play in the mid-court or the transition zone. So that's gonna be the space between the baseline and the kitchen line, and that is one of the hardest areas of the court to play in. So the key is we want to be very smart anytime we find ourselves in this area of the court. So usually that's going to happen after a serve. You're at the baseline, you want to look to get up to the kitchen. After a return, you hit your return, you run from the baseline of the kitchen. Or sometimes if you're at the kitchen and your opponent starts hitting the ball really hard at you, you might look to back up to play a little bit of defense, which is okay as long as we're doing it wisely. So the first rule of thumb is we never really want to get caught anytime playing within about 7 feet of the baseline. This right here, which is almost halfway up through the kitchen, I never really want to get caught behind that. That's going to be a very difficult area of the court to play in for 2 reasons. One, I'm not really going to be able to let a lot of out balls go, because if the ball is coming to me out of the air and I'm standing right here, it's going to be tough for me to judge. Anything I'm hitting out of the air around here is probably going to be out. So it's very tough for me to judge the ball there. And if I hit it before it bounces, well, I'm probably giving away a free point there. And then also, my feet are very close to the baseline. So if my opponents do manage to get it in the court and it's bouncing, it's probably going to be a very uncomfortable shot to hit. As I'm sure you've already experienced, the hardest shots in pickleball to hit are the ones that are coming right at your feet. So if I'm here, the ball's either going to be going out and I'm going to be tempted to hit it, or the ball's going to be bouncing around my feet, and neither of those are really great things. So I want to either be back here, or if I'm going to move up through the court, I want to make sure I get at least past that halfway mark. I get up to around here, because that way, if my opponent does hit something that's coming to me out of the air, it's at least likely to be a little bit higher, and it's going to be much harder for them to find my feet from here. The closer I am to the net, the harder it is for my opponent to find my feet, and I want to try to hide my feet. So now I have to think about, when I look to move forward towards the kitchen, how am I going to get past that zone right there? So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're returning and running and getting up as close as possible. So when you're on the return of serve, here's what you're going to do. So when I'm returning, I want to make sure that I, of course, start behind the line. I have to let the ball bounce anyway when my opponent's serving. So I'm going to make sure I give myself plenty of space behind the line. That way I can get my momentum going forward into it, and then I can come straight up to the kitchen and at least get halfway there. I never want to return and get caught here. That's going to put me in a lot of trouble. So when I'm hitting a return of serve, I have to return and run straight up to the kitchen line and get as close as possible. So I want to make sure I give myself that space, and then when the serve comes, I'm going to move up, I'm going to hit through it, and I'm going to go right up to the kitchen line. And see there, I was able to get some forward momentum, so I made it almost all the way up to the line by the time I returned bounce on the other side. That's the win for me. I got myself up at the kitchen. Now, if I get caught returning the serve a little bit too close to the baseline, what might happen is I will not be able to get enough forward momentum to pull me past that 7-foot mark between the baseline and the transition zone. So if I'm here and I'm set, I'm going to hit, then I'm going to move up, the ball bounced, and I was only here, which is a little bit too close to the baseline for my comfort. That return's going to come back and it's going to bounce to my feet, or I might just hit an out ball and I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble there. So if you want to make sure you're avoiding that difficult zone to play in, close to the baseline within 7 feet, make sure that you're returning from far enough back that you have room to move up. Now you might say to yourself, well, what if my opponent likes hitting me short serves? Well, if they do, then you can adjust. If you notice that your opponent gives you 2 or 3 short serves consistently, and you notice that's going to be a trend, then sure, you can step in a little bit closer. Once I get up closer to the kitchen, I actually have a little bit of room to play with, especially as a beginner player. In the past even, you would never see advanced players even stepping off the line. You would always see them hugging the line. These days, even the pro players are playing a little bit behind the line sometimes. I think that for beginners though, it's always a good strategy to, with intention, move a little bit behind the line if you have a good reason to. So for example, if I'm stuck here and I'm standing right at that line and my opponent just keeps hitting me hard speed ups and I don't have time to react, maybe my eye hand isn't great enough, maybe my anticipation isn't great enough, or you're just not experienced enough of a player to learn how to handle that pace, what you can do is you can take a step back, you can come maybe 4 feet off the kitchen line, and that gives you more time to react. I don't have any problem with you playing within the middle area of the court within our transition zone, as long as you're staying out of that zone right by the back. So even if I took an extra step and I came almost halfway back, that can be advantageous to me as long as, again, I'm doing it with intention. So my first goal when I'm playing, of course, still is to get to the kitchen line and get right up to where my toes are just about on the line. But if I notice that my opponent is giving me a lot of hard shots and I'm having trouble reacting to it and I keep popping it up, well, that's where I might want to take that extra step or two back to give myself some more space. So now when I'm playing, when I notice that my opponent might be looking to speed up, I can take that step back so I have extra time to react and encounter hard. That's going to be a little bit discouraging to my opponent too, where if all of a sudden I adjust and I'm able to take those hard shots and pound them right back to win the point, well, he or she might end up feeling a little bit discouraged that their attacks aren't working, and they might look to change their strategy and try something different, which is a win for us because we were able to counter the thing that they were doing to hurt us. I can use that strategy when my opponent keeps lobbing me too. So if I'm glued to that line, my opponent has a lot of space to work with behind me to get the ball to drop where I'm not going to be able to get it, especially if I don't have my weight going backwards and I set for an overhead. So instead, if I think my opponent might go for a lob, what I can do is take that step back. Now if he lobs, I'm going to be all over it. Even if he lobs it and it's going to land within a few feet of the baseline, taking those extra couple steps back gives me the head start where I can now reach the baseline in 1-2 steps. This might not be a great strategy if we're playing against advanced players because they're going to have more weapons and more opportunities now to hit our feet. But if you're playing against beginner players, intermediate players that aren't hitting a ton of dinks and they're not really finding your feet that well, take a couple steps off the line and give yourself some more space and time. As long as you know that that's a great strategy for beginners, it's a great strategy for intermediates, but it's not so good of a strategy for advanced players. And once you get to that advanced level, you just might want to refine it a little bit. That's totally fine. You can use it until you get to that level. And my fifth and final tip, which is an absolute non-negotiable for not only beginners but players of any level, is to make sure that you have a really good ready position. And maybe you've already heard that. Maybe you've already seen that in other videos or heard a coach tell you, but what I'm going to show you is going to be a little bit different, and it's going to make sure that you have the best ready position that's going to be able to scale your game from beginner all the way up to advanced. So first off, what is the ready position? That's when I have my paddle up and out in front, so that way I'm ready for the ball to come either to a forehand or a backhand. I'm going to be ready for a volley, I'm going to be ready for a dink, I'm going to be ready for an overhead, I'm going to be ready for a counter. I can do anything from this position. Now, of course, I might like my forehand better than my backhand, so why not just sit on my forehand all day? Well, if the ball comes over there, now my paddle has to travel all the way to my backhand side. Whereas when I'm in my ready position, yeah, it's going to take a tiny bit longer to get to either side as opposed to if I was waiting there, but it's at least going to be equal, so that way my opponent can't just send the ball to one side and have me be late. So I'm going to be able to easily get to my forehand or to my backhand with equal opportunity when I'm set in the ready position. Now, it's not just about having my paddle in the middle. There's going to be a little more strategy behind that as well. So this right here, even though my paddle is up and my paddle's in the middle, is not a great ready position. The reason for that is because I'm in really close to my body. So our first tip that we worked on today was to make sure that we have our weight going forward. If my paddle's close to my body, even if it's right in the middle, my weight's going to end up going backwards. I also need to make sure that I have my paddle up above the level of the net. So if I have my paddle in front, but it's here or here, well, it's below the level of the net. But even still, right here, this might look like a pretty good ready position. I'm up high, my paddle's out in front, but there's one thing I'm going to change about this that's going to help my game tremendously, which is I'm going to move my elbow in towards the center of my body, so that way, when I pull it back, it's going to hit me. That's how I know I have a good position. When I'm out here and I pull it back, I'm hitting the air. When I'm here and I pull it back, I'm hitting my body. That's gonna help me find it. What that does to help me is it allows me to swing and cover my whole body with just my hand. I can hit a forehand by opening up my wrist and punching. I can hit a backhand by closing my wrist and punching. When I'm here with my elbow flared, I can't hit a forehand without inverting my elbow. This is going to create much more motion, and what usually happens then when the ball comes over to my forehand side is I turn and come back like this. I lose time, I lose power, and I lose balance because I'm catching the ball behind me. That's going to be very tough for me to hit a good counter. When I'm here, all I have to do is punch straight. I can go here, defend my right shoulder. I can go over here, catch that in front. I can go here, get a backhand. With this position right here, even though I'm up and out in front, I can really only hit backhands effectively. And that's great if I'm hitting backhands, but I have a forehand too, so if the ball comes over to my right, then I'm gonna be in trouble. The key to having good counters, the key to defending against bangers, the key to playing really solid pickleball and keeping the ball down is keeping your weight out in front and keeping a compact swing, hitting with as little motion as possible. So here I'm hitting some volleys in that backhand dominant ready position, and it's fine for my backhands, but as soon as the ball comes over to my forehand side, I'm gonna get caught behind me. So instead what I need to do is keep that elbow tucked right in front. I'm gonna turn this way to hit my backhand and then come right back into that neutral ready position. So that way when the ball does come to my forehand, I can punch it back with a nice compact swing. And you see there, I switched right over to the forehand just by moving the hand, no problem at all. I can only do that if my ready position keeps my elbow tucked in and not flared out. And then the final thing that this protects me against is the famous chicken wing. So the right shoulder is technically the hardest spot to defend on your body. If the ball comes towards your right shoulder, the natural inclination is to do something like this, which is a very weak position to be in. And I'm gonna be doing that all the time if I have my elbow flared out, because I'm just gonna slide my backhand across and try to punch from here. It's a very weak shot. So instead what I can do when I have that elbow tucked in is just open up my paddle face. I'm right in front of my right shoulder and I can just punch down. Or you could even slide out of the way a little bit, just move your body weight over, and then you have even more room to pack a much bigger punch from that right shoulder. Those are my top 5 mistakes that I see beginners always making. Let us know in the comments which ones you've been making and that you're now not gonna make anymore. And if you wanna see more where that came from, make sure you subscribe.